So welcome back, guys. We've got eVTOL Fan Club episode 6, and we're a man down today, but I've got my two co-hosts here. We've got Mark and Dylan. And how's your week been going, Mark?
It's been going well. Really busy with the job that pays the bills and keeps the lights on. But it's been an exciting week though too in the markets as well. So
it's been really heating up, I think. And
it has.
We've obviously seen the tariffs as well. I think that's going to create a little bit of fear maybe coming into next week. But it's always a bit of fun with, I don't know, you guys over in the US sort of dominating. What about you, Dylan? How's your week been going?
It's been going good. I feel bad. I feel like I've been inverse of Mark. Been on vacation, so a lot of family time. But we're back home, so it's been exciting to kind of dig back in and see what I can uncover. But chat with you guys. So yeah, it's going good. How you doing, Reece?
Yeah, doing very well. So like the plan for today, I think we've seen Joby have sort of pulled ahead maybe in the race. Something that I've been tracking for probably the last year, maybe year and a half on this channel. And they do seem to be making strides now. Then we'll probably go on later on in the video to discuss vertical, who've had a 30% pullback, and we're going to discuss why has that happened and where can we see them going. Because obviously, I think with most of our eVTOL stocks at the moment, we've been seeing rises or them stabilizing. But it was quite a big shock, I think, for a lot of the vertical aerospace investors this week. But just before we jump into it, I want to do a big shout out to Iron Man. He's here every week. He says, let's get this party started. I've been looking forward to this all weekend.
Yeah.
And then Zona Vendor has said that, saying I was disappointed when this was pushed off day by day. Well, don't worry, we're back now. And assuming that we have Archer's biggest ball, I think there's no better place to start than how are you feeling at the moment with Joby and Archer's disparity, could we say? I feel like the market sentiment is probably tilting a bit more towards Joby. But obviously, I think it goes back and forth. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see it swing the other way again.
I agree with you very much on that point, Reece. I do kind of find in the eVTOLs, I feel like we're kind of one ahead, one behind, kind of in a market cap. So for me, it's exciting to see Joby go up. Gives the opportunity for further potential with inside of Archer. Now that is with Archer truly delivering on what they've said with inside of their Q updates. So, but also kind of just as a side note, before I left in my Archer Excel sheet here, I now have a Joby tab. So I've started back at all the 2021 SEC filings. So it's been kind of curious to kind of dig under the hood of Joby. So I'm going to kind of go inversely with Joby, kind of see where they started. So for me, I kind of go on the SEC side and just kind of works for my brain. But so, so how am I feeling about Joby? I got an extra tab on my spreadsheet, and, it's very interesting and very cool to see them get the pilot in the air. Very cool.
No, I think that's an interesting point we discussed just before is about when you are invested in anything, you need to be an investor that has knowledge about the stock. And sometimes you can get feeling with a stock and get attached to it. But you do sometimes just have to take a step back and look at the bigger picture and evaluate maybe on which one is the better one for you to be in. But as I said, I think Archer are going to have something on that earnings call on the August the 6th. Now, will it be good news or bad news? I'm thinking they're going to come out with something big, because anytime they've fallen behind in this race, they've always delivered on something. And some people will always say, oh, it's just a PR. But I don't know. At some point, they've got to get the right team in place and start really pushing along this their design and getting it over the line. What about you, Mark? How are you feeling at the moment between Archer and Joby?
Yeah, I think, again, I had said this a couple podcasts before that, you want to be selling results. You don't want to be selling hope. And I think at this point, Joby is selling results. Mm-hmm. And Archer needs to start proving that they're moving along with this certification process.
Yeah, no, I'm in complete agreement. I'm actually looking forward to that earnings call to see what progress have they made, and are we actually going to finally get a percentage of completion that they are through their test certification? Are we going to know when they're doing their TIA testing for Joby? That would be. I think this earnings call could be one of the biggest that we've had up to this date, and it's going to.
I wish
where these are going.
I wish we could be on the call so you could just ask the hard question of,
Yeah.
have you guys begun TIA testing?
Yes.
And how far along are you in your TIA testing? And if you've not started TIA testing, and for everybody on the chat or everybody listening in, TIA, when we say that, that means you are they're now it's a type inspection authority, TIA, and it means that you have gone to the FAA and said, okay, we are ready with our aircraft that we are going to certify, and we want to start getting credit for all of the different criterias that we said we would certify under. And that is one of the very last phases to type certification. Once you complete TIA, you are then very close to getting type certification. And TIA testing, depending on how complicated it is, normally for most aircraft, it takes about a year to get through TIA testing. It can be accelerated, but it's all going to be a function of just how rigorous of a test cycle do you have to get through.
And do you need would you need to pass the TIA testing before the type certification is awarded and you can move on?
Yes, you do not. Yeah, you have to get through TIA testing. That is where you have, like, you hear them talking about, well, we've built our test plans and our certification plans. That is one of the previous phases. You first have, like, in the very, very beginning, like phase one is each one of these companies goes through and they go to the FAA and they say, okay, how are we going to comply with the regulations? This is our plan or our means of compliance of how we are going to comply with the regulations to certify. Then you go and based off those means of compliance, you have to then generate test plans. And it's based off of those test plans that the FAA grades you. And you have to, so when you go into TIA testing, the FAA is going to go off, they approve all of these things. They approve your means of compliance, they approve your test plans, and then you go and you do your company testing, and then you go into TIA testing. And when you do TIA testing, that is with the FAA representative actually signing you off. It's like the proctor of the exam, saying, yes, we accept that your aircraft is meeting its, we call them KPPs, key performance parameters.
Mm-hmm.
And you're basically, your aircraft is delivering what you're advertising it will do, both from a performance perspective and from a safety perspective. But TIA testing is that final step. Once you get through TIA testing, then there's some paperwork that needs to be done, but shortly after that is when you get your type certification.
Based on that, then surely, say if they've done TIA by the end of this year, it wouldn't be to the end of 2026 really until we can see it signed off. And would that
no, actually, to counter that, if they had TIA test, if they get through TIA testing by the end of this year, they would be delivering aircraft entry into service by first quarter.
But if they don't go into TIA testing until,
if they don't go into it, if they've not started it yet, that's a very good sign that, okay, they got a year to go at least.
Would that have been something they would have informed us of on that last earnings call, do you think? Would you want to disclose it, or is it like in terms of if they're being competitive with Archer, they might not want to give that information away to show how far ahead they are?
Probably not want to give that information away.
That's to be honest, that's because you did get me worried there when you said a year. But the fact that it could be, I don't know, giving the edge away, because I guess they would love nothing better to be able to just come out in the next earnings call and say, yeah, we've just finished TIA tested, we're ready to go. And at that point, they've probably blown them out of the water.
Oh, if any of these companies comes out and says, because this is just it. It comes down to a schedule. What is your schedule to get through test? What is your schedule to certify? And that is very closely guarded among all of these companies. And you don't want to disclose it because it's it's kind of your game plan. It's the coach on the sideline holding up. You're not going to, the coach isn't just going to show the camera all the different plays. The playbooks, because there are different means of compliance. There aren't different means of compliance, but how they get to compliance may be different, and depending on their designs could be different. So the roadmap to certification can vary, and there's different strategy for it. But still, it's like, think of it like it's preseason football. Sorry for the sports reference if some of our listeners aren't sports fans, but it's like preseason football is prior to TIA testing. And then, once the season starts, it's for credit. It's like, all that matters towards, are you going to get into the playoffs or not?
Yeah.
And that is there's a time frame, or that it just takes, it's like baking a cake, it's got to be in the oven for so long. And you got to go, and you have to go through all of these different tests. And that comes down to, not only is the aircraft ready, are your people ready for those tests, but also, is it a function of, does the FAA have the resources for you? And that is something I'm actually really interested in, is if you have three companies all trying to go through TIA testing all at the same time because they're rushing to a finish line, how is the FAA going to support that? Because that is definitely a determining factor.
That's actually a really good point, and it's actually kind of reminds me of a theory that we had before of, is there a possibility that Archer maybe are waiting behind a little bit just so Joby can sort of agree the regulations that they need to abide by? Could they be sort of like letting them lead the way and sort of, I don't know, agree a certain principle so they know what they have to rate like?
No, they're not. They're not, because you're not. I want ask that again. I want to make sure I understood it correctly.
So, like, in terms of, if I don't know if there's certain regulate, because obviously this is uncharted territory. So if Joby are going through and agreeing with the FAA, and it's like, okay, if you meet this criteria, you'll get certified, or that can be ticked off, and this element of it can be ticked off. Is there a chance that then go ahead and sort of path the way, and then they're just like, okay, let's just conform to that, and then we won't have to go through?
So it doesn't work that way. You have to, again, when you go to the FAA in the very beginning of your test program, you have to give them your it's called a means of compliance, which means you basically have to come and say, this is how our aircraft will meet the aircraft regulations based off the certification rules. If you look up in part 20, it's part 23, which is for standard aircraft, and then I can't remember exactly what rotorcraft is. And now there's like this hybrid that has come out with the FAA, which will allow you to pick from the different certification bases, like part 23, and I think it's part 27. And the FAA has just come out with that rule. And what they will do is, they will go, in the very beginning, they went to the FAA and said, this is how we're going to this is our plan, our certification plan. And from the certification plan, these are our means of compliance of how we are going to meet the regulations. If in every one of these companies has to do that individually. It's not like you can say, well, we're just going to wait for the guy next door to do it, and we'll just keep copying what he's going to do, or he or she is going to do. It doesn't work that way, because the FAA would say, get out of here. You're not serious about this. when you go to the FAA, like you got to have your ducks in a row. And when you go to the certification authorities, you have to have it like it's got to be like
Yeah.
it's got to look good and it's got to be tied up. Otherwise, they're going to be like, get out of here. We're not even going to talk to you right now. So they're all way past that at this point. I want to say, are any of them in TIA testing at this point, where the regulators are actually, performing these tests, or are they getting credit towards cert, or are they not? So I don't know yet, and that's why I said I'd love to be on the call and just ask the question, like,
Yeah.
are you guys in? Because if this is just it, they can say on a conference call, we're going to deliver these aircraft to the UAE, and we're going to start doing flights next year. Okay, great. Are those going to be revenue generating flights with a type certified aircraft?
Market
Most
survey
likely,
flights and
it's
such.
not. There'll be survey flights, and the FAA or the government allows you to do that, where you can go and you can, take your experimental aircraft, which could be still conformed and what you plan on delivering when it's all said and done, but you would not be doing revenue generating flights. You'd maybe doing market analysis flights. You could be doing route planning flights where you're, testing it. Okay, can we take this thing off, come and land it, take another one off, come and land it. You could be doing all of these activities, but it's not like, a civilian or someone outside of the program is getting on the app and saying, okay, I want to take my flight,
Sure.
and I'm gonna pay my money to take this flight. They're not at that point yet, or if they're at that point, we're gonna see a lot. That's the one I want to invest in.
This is a comment from. Oh yeah, carry on then, Dylan. What were you going to say?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, Reece, I think something that I remember, and I'm sorry if I'm saying that you said it incorrectly, but I believe remember conversations in the 3 to 6 months ago, again, with all the partnerships coming in for Archer and stuff, and they're doing this work with the GCAA, kind of the general, are they biting off more than they can chew? And I guess my rhetorical question for you guys that we may or may not know the answer, it's like, me as an Archer investor, I'm excited on the GCAA opportunity and delivery of aircraft.
Yeah.
But again, if that's not going to be a revenue generating aspect for the company, like why do you want to take on these launch edition customers as opposed to just focusing all your resources and efforts onto that one aircraft, get it FAA certified and get your company off the ground?
Yeah, I think that was something that we've discussed a few times. I think originally that point got brought up with Andrew. I think now we've probably came to the conclusion Andrew is probably a decent partnership to have. But I don't know. There's sometimes if you have too many items or too many different activities that you're trying to do at the same time, are you giving your 100% focus to one? That is like one of my biggest queries with them, because they always seem to be a new partnership or a deal that they're doing. And are they putting the right resource maybe into that design team and seeing if they can push it across? Because like Joby seemed to have got their design in place, and I think that video we discussed before about having a look at maybe the engineers they have, and are they experienced enough? Have they done this type certification process before? Like, I think we might need to do a deeper dive into it and see if there is anything changing around. Because at the end of the day, we really want both of these companies to be soaring. And I'm just a bit skeptical now at the moment, because very similar to what we were saying earlier about delivering results and sort of selling dreams. I'm just on the edge at the moment. Like, it just seems we need some real proof, I think, that Archer are flying ahead with their design. That's the only thing that's kind of worrying me at this moment in time.
Yeah.
In terms of the PR element of it, I think they're much better. But unfortunately, you prefer the results than the PR side of it.
Which do you think is much better?
I think Archer's PR is much better than.
Yes.
I think Adam is unbelievable. Even that, what was it? This is the bat signal, and Like, I know it's such a small comment, but that really, like, it gets you hyped. And like, he's obviously said it, and he knows he's going to get that reaction. But yeah, the bat signal is up.
But does it say Joby? That's an interesting question. You know, it's like the signal is up. Did Adam say the words? But you know, doesn't get that flight behind him.
Let me jump into a few comments now because they're starting to amp up. Arman saying 52-week all-time high for Joby. As I said before, it's a great news at the moment on Joby's behalf. Arman also said at July 16th, 17th, Detroit Reindustrialized Summit, we may see news from both of them. So that's only in 3 or 4 days. As always, I'm pretty sure we'll end up doing a video on it and keeping everyone up to date. Drano84 says, spot on comment so far. Paradox, that's right. Joby is selling results and Archer is selling hype, which still gives props to their social media team. They have raised all that money. So in a way, it will be helpful in the long run. I think that's the other thing, isn't it? That Archer do have a lot of cash in the bank. So even if they are behind, not saying throw cash at it, if you spend wisely on the right team, surely they could accelerate the process to get them back and to get everything back in line.
To some extent, you can throw money at the problem, and that happens a lot in aerospace. It happens a lot in the defense industry. I can remember on the F-35 program when the Stovall variant was something like 800 pounds overweight, and it was just not viable. And the government came in and said, okay, we're going to give you more money, halt everything, and just start getting weight out of this airplane. And because that was one of the biggest design issues of that in that program was getting weight out of the Stovall aircraft. And it came down to like we would like shave, every bracket would be shaved down. And this is where design really becomes a big factor of you can design a prototype and if that prototype doesn't meet its performance characteristics, or you can't lift what you said you're going to lift, well, now you start getting into, okay, how do we redesign to fix that? Do we have the people that know how to fix that? Archer can go and spend the money to get those people. You're seeing that a lot right now with AI and how Mark Zuckerberg is just sending out enormous bonuses, because it's just like, if you don't spend the money, you may die. So we have to do it. It's fascinating to watch. But like Drano84's comment about the rotors, he basically says, I can't get over the videos of Archer that keep showing the 4 blades on the rear motors. This is not a viable design. Do you think it's still viable design going forward? So on that topic, I don't think it's necessarily a viable design, and I think it could be a telltale sign of where they're at in their development program. But if you go and look at vertical aerospace and Archer have a very similar powertrain configuration, and with verticals, their rotors, they will actually rotate. It's probably a 2-hub system. So one of your rotors will rotate. So when you're in normal flight, both those rotors will be pointing into the wind, and you won't have one sideways catching all that drag. To that point, this could be a perfect scenario where Archer may have to go to that design, or go to a design like that, well, there's a couple of scenarios. They may go, you can always certify what you currently have. And this happens a lot in the aerospace industry, where you'll certify what you have, and then just to get to market, and then you do what's an STC. It's a supplemental type certificate. So you'll do a change, and in that change, then they could maybe implement a different rotor system to improve their performance. But I also think too that's not viable. They need to, if they want to stay ahead in this competition, or if they want to be competitive in this competition, they're going to need to deliver
So
their, what they're going to need to deliver a competitive package. And if it's going to require 4 rotors, they'll probably need to redesign their rear rotors to do something similar to what Vertical Aerospace is doing. And I also think Eve is doing a similar type design as well. Like if you look at configurations, you have Joby, which is in a league of their own, with all of their rotors moving forward and providing thrust in both the vertical and the horizontal flight mode. Then you have Eve, Vertical Aerospace, and Archer. All of them have a semi-similar. I guess maybe Eve is different because I think they have a propeller in the rear. But and then you have Hover, and Hover is, again, I think, in a league of their own. In terms of, but they're also way back at the starting line too.
yeah,
So I'm kind of going off tangent here, and I wanted to answer, Drano's question. Yeah, sorry, where were we going?
No, that was great. No,
he's
that's
basically
awesome.
saying, do you think that do you think the 4 blades will be a viable design going forward? Will it be possible, or do you think they'll end up having to vary away from that?
I think they're probably going to have a 4-blade design in the rear, on the rear section of the airplane. And they probably could still get certified. They're just not going to have their performance that they were wanting. There will be a drag penalty, or then you may see a change in the design where they'll have a hub system so that 2 of those rotors turn into the wind, and it's all clocked into the wind. It's still drag. You're still, stick your hand out the window, or go ride a bicycle down a hill, and then go starfish for a second, and you'll see you're not going to be as efficient going through the air.
Do you find it quite funny? Do you find it quite funny that they've gone this far in the design process and either they haven't picked that up yet, or they just thought it'll be like negligible? But and from your perspective, is that sort of insanity in terms of getting that drag penalty?
So it depends. I'm not a big fan of again, as a pilot who flies airplanes, and as someone who's worked in the aerospace industry for 25 years, I'm not a big fan of draggy airframes. Like, you don't want things just hanging out in the wind.
Yeah.
There are there's aerodynamic things you could potentially do to reduce the drag and circumvent that. Like, you look at Cirrus aircraft doesn't have a retractable landing gear, so the gears are always hanging out in the wind, but they also have all these aerodynamic shapes and wheel pants. They're called wheel pants. It's this bubble that goes around the wheel that makes it still pretty efficient. I mean, it's still a little draggy, but this is where you get into the whole design question, because a fixed landing gear is much lighter than a retractable landing gear is extremely heavy. So there's that. Okay, well, what's the benefit? We have a much more simple design with just gears hanging out and fairings, or do we try to get everything sucked in or have it closed up? And that's similar. That's what Hover's doing. Hover is closing everything up, and then it's just an airplane. As where Archer and these other aircraft companies, well, they're like, we'll take the drag for right now, and hope if the battery technology improves, it all becomes a bit of a moot point for what their mission profile is. Their mission profile is only 20 miles, 20 minutes. So they may be able to take the drag penalty, and it's not a big deal. I'm sorry, Dylan, I keep interrupting.
No. That was perfect, because it leads in exactly, because I was kind of curious, because if we kind of go on the current use cases, or what will be the first, second, and third use cases of these aircraft. would the 50 to 100 miles per hour be something that would be game breaking? You know, like if your archer is going to take you from point A to point B 150 versus a Joby going 200 miles per hour, but you're doing a range of, you know, the Manhattan or the, you know, basic airport to airport.
It doesn't make too much of a difference.
And then I think you had a great point too, and maybe we can touch on this later too, but I was very curious with the advancements in the battery technology, if that would kind of also flow into just additional benefits, not just with the speed and range, but with the weight of aircraft, which I guess flows into speed and range also. So, you know, it's kind of one of those, I, for me, I'll say, kind of being able to nerd out around the eVTOLs, it's I almost love and smile that we're at this point of being able to debate the 2 versus 4, because 6 months ago or so, you know, this is like we're in a whole different ballpark, waiting for piloted test flight 2 happen. So I think it's cool that we even get to discuss the difference between what design can really push one of these companies into first place. With their with their use cases and the market surveys that come out, and just all the flight data and stuff. So yeah, it just makes me smile to have them both in the race, but us being able to really nitpick so down and figure out which is part of the best design. So I like it though.
Yeah. Oh, it's an exciting time. It's really exciting. If you're an investor or you're not an investor, if you're just, you know, if you got your money on the sidelines but you're just following, it's a really exciting time.
Can I ask you this curveball question, Mark? This is a no prep. So if you take the automobile and the automobile engine, so if I think I have my facts straight, you know, coming out earlier than the aircraft engine. So then you have an aircraft with an internal combustion engine. So if you look at the EV cars and general progression there, maybe we'll stick with batteries. Is that something where like the car industry is always 10, 20 years ahead of aviation, and then kind of aviation ends up being able to adopt it into something kind of like how Molicel is developing the batteries, both for not just eVTOL, but other use cases that they sell to as well? So if that question makes sense.
So your question, does the aerospace industry lag in technological advance to the automotive industry?
Or maybe if not the harsh word of lag, maybe be able to take some of the advancements. So as like the battery tech gets better within the cars, you know, but basically taking those advancements, placing them into an aircraft, and then maybe scaling those up to the power needed in that.
Yeah. So it's well, one thing I'll state about the difference between the aerospace, this is kind of fascinating, and I've heard this before, that you have the automotive industry, you have the aerospace industry, and then you have the space industry. And like the cost for, I think I heard like the cost per part to develop, design, certify for something that flies is its weight in silver, and something that goes into space is its weight in gold. Just because of, you know, just typically it's its weight in gold in space, because once you kick it out, it doesn't come back. At least that's been the case for such a long time, and this is why Rocket Lab and SpaceX are really allowing these space to be more affordable, because these rockets come back. But the other thing too, Dylan, is scalability, and like this will blow someone's mind. A 6-cylinder Lycoming engine that goes on just a standard airplane, like a, you know, which is just on the front of an airplane, brand new, is $70,000 to $80,000. And the technology of that engine was developed in the 1940s and 1950s. Like, and yeah, it's crazy that Lycoming and Continental, their engines haven't changed in 70 years. And Lycoming engines prior to World War II used to be, they were out in the Great Plains and they were used to run irrigation. So, and the reason is the cost to certify these things are so expensive, and they're not scalable. Like you know, if you build, I mean, Cirrus is the most popular certified airplane out there right now and has been for the last 20 years. And they may deliver 200 aircraft a year or 400 aircraft a year or some, it's a very small number. It's under 1,000. So you look at now there are a lot of advancements and you're always trying to cost save, but all of these processes always have to be approved by the FAA. They have to be certified. And it just it's just a completely different world from the automotive world, where it's just like, all right, we've got a product line, we're going to throw $1 billion into this product line, and in 5 years, that it's just like, oh yeah, they don't even do that car anymore. It's just
Right.
it's just garbage.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but
Great
but
point.
but the automotive industry went and built a they made $5 billion on that product line. It's a
True.
scalability thing, which is interesting though, because as we start getting, I think, and this is what's really exciting for general aviation, is eVTOLs, because I personally think within 15 years, everyone on this call will have the opportunity to go to have their own personal eVTOL. I believe I'm hopefully believing that will exist, where they won't be flying cars, but they will be flying craft that will be available to the public at a mass scale. And that's is why I'm such a big fan of this new world that we're ushering into.
Do you think that would be landing in airports then, or would that literally wherever you wanted?
No, your neighborhood will have a landing zone, and you're going to land in your neighborhood, or you're going to have 2 acres of land, and you'll have what would be the equivalent of a helipad and a building, and you'll land at that helipad, or you'll land on that pad and then push your vehicle into your building.
It's crazy to think though that we could be sitting here in 7 years time and they'll be speaking about the eVTOL engine they made in 2025.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They made a great engine and that's it. We're not ever touching it again.
Yeah.
Let me jump back into Iron Man asked, I'm not sure if you know this, Mark, but Mark, the Joby start TIA in Dubai. I imagine it's similar to what we was discussing before about we're not really sure about TIA because they're not disclosing at the moment.
Yeah, to that particular question, no, they did. You wouldn't do TIA testing in a foreign country. The TIA, Joby is going to certify with the FAA, and all of the testing will most likely get done in the United States. What they're doing right now, I suspect, by taking their aircraft, their experimental aircraft, they could be their conformed aircraft, it could be, but they're all certified and flying right now under an experimental ticket. And the regulatory agencies allow you to go to places and do market research. You can promote your aircraft, you can fly it, you can demonstrate it. And that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing right now. Is they're pretty much like testing all these things out in Dubai, because that's going to be most likely their launch customer. And you want to do that because you want to take your product, show it off at for lack of better terms, the auto show, where you're going to be selling it. Because what's in Dubai? A lot of money and a lot of people who want to get involved in this.
Yeah.
So, both Archer and Joby both going to the Middle East right at the same time and saying, and demonstrating in front of people and making promotional videos. It gets people hyped up and it gets people involved and it gets people, wanting to keep moving forward.
So I've got the right end of the stick on this one then. So even until they get the type certification over in the US with the FAA, they won't be flying commercially over in Dubai or something like that. Or with the Dubai sort of aviation, can they do their own sort of testing to give it the stamp?
So this is just it. And I guess this is it is a wild card. The government of Dubai could say, come on over. We don't care if this thing's certified in the US or not, and they could give it a stamp of certification. And they could start doing revenue generating flights because the FAA has no authority whatsoever
in Dubai.
outside of the United States. So the regulatory, whoever is signing off or approving it in Dubai could say, yeah, let's do it and let's start. And they could be off to the races, and there could necessarily be no certification means. But there was just a few weeks ago all of the different countries, EASA, the FAA. What is the one in the Middle East? Dylan, do you know? Is it
Abu Dhabi Aviation, or am I speaking in a
just
different,
the regulatory, just whoever the regular
GCAA? Yeah.
GCAA, yeah. Those regulatory bodies are all agreed that they're going to work together, which makes me think they're all going to say, yes, we want the FAA to lead on this because these are getting built and certified in the US.
Right.
But there's nothing to say, hey, you guys get this far and we're ready to go. And so, what that far is tough to say. Sorry, my camera is like coming in and out with light. That's probably really annoying. I need to get I will get a different camera with everybody on the chat because
another comment here for you, Mark, from Tom Misselli. Hey, Mark, in one of the earlier streams, you thought that Joby was using only pre-peg. Have you seen the Monroe tour on Joby's factory?
So I've not, So let me say this: for their original aircraft, I suspect they're probably using pre-preg and laying everything up and then putting them geez, I'm totally having a brain fart at the name of it. An autoclave, and they heat them up and vacuum bag everything into a mold and heat it up, and the pre-preg comes out of solution and it becomes the part. But I think just a few weeks ago, Archer announced that they're teaming with GKN. And I think we're going to start seeing this more and more, maybe not as much with Joby because they're so vertically integrated. If you are going to be doing these aircraft at scale, you're going to need to be using automated fiber placement machines, and they're basically going to be robots that are laying down, and it's all robotic on how you're building your parts. I see Joby uses AFP, automated fiber placement, on their airframe, which you're right, Tom. They would, if you're going to do anything at scale, that's the way you want to do it. And Archer's claiming that they are teaming with GKN. I think it was to build their wings. GKN builds the fuselage for the Honda Jet, and they have a lot of automated fiber placement machines. They have the industry know-how on how to do it. So I think you'll start seeing some of these OEMs teaming with suppliers, and you see this everywhere in the industry with the exception of Joby, since they're really vertically integrated. But automated fiber placement is going to be the fastest way to scale the build in manufacturing for composites. That is for composites. You can have, if it's a metal, if you've got metal components and whatnot, you can have an army of computer numeric control CNC machines cranking out parts and all of that. But for anything that's going to be composite related, you're going to have pre-preg forms where you're laying everything in it and then building it. And that's not the quickest way. The quickest way would be AFPs and automated fiber placement. So, and shout out, Tom, I will definitely watch that. I'll find the video so I can see it.
And I love the amount of knowledge you bring to this stream. I always feel like I learned something once we're on with you. This one's probably more for you, Dylan. Archer has the backing of Stellantis partnership with Anduril and Palantir, so Joby doesn't even come close to them. Do you think that these two partners will be vital for them in the coming months, years?
I do, and it's not just a news-driven headline that gets me with the well, actually, first, if we touch on the Andrew, it's not just a headline-driven emotion that I have with that partnership. I feel like there's a lot of either retail sentiment or just and again, I need to learn more about Andrew this week on Andrew, but it's seeming like it's a defense play that a lot of people are getting interested in. So to me, it seems like a partnership that can lead to success. Dot dot dot. I don't know what that success is yet because again, Adam said that he can't really speak on the details of the Andrew partnership outside of it really being a sale of an aircraft to Andrew, and then they kind of take control of the aircraft after that. To the Stellantis point, something that I'm a bit curious and was chatting with the guys over. So there was actually a filing form, because I'm all about those, that came out, bear with me, on let's see, it would have been probably an 8K.
This will probably cover your comment, Tom Misselli, where he says, Dylan, any updates on Archer's partnership with Stellantis?
Yeah, so on June 27th, there was an 8K filed regarding the approval of share insurances to Stellantis. They had a board meeting, I believe it was like a month or two ago, to do the voting powers and such on that partnership. For me, that has been one of the red flags since about December for me with Archer, where again, I say if you're to take Joby and Archer side by side and we're playing a game of pickup basketball, Joby has the first pick. They pick Toyota. And for me right now, I'm saying that that's the winner in the manufacturing partner, as well as they've already sealed up that manufacturing partnership.
Yeah.
Now, again, if you go back and look at the SEC filings, there were filings that led you into seeing that a Toyota partnership was happening in about a week to two away from when that came place. So I don't have a crystal ball, but it did give me some good hope on the Stellantis partnership. And again, that was June 27th. So we're about 2-3 weeks out of that filing. So that's something that I'm very interested in listening to on the upcoming earnings call if we don't get any information prior. And it does kind of lead also to a little bit of, sorry, I can't remember if it was the pre or we were talking about it early in the live with the kind of bit off more than we can chew kind of situation. Because for me, I was looking today as well to get some information on the factory in Georgia and the facility in Georgia and just see if any updates had come out there. And, I kind of had to think a little bit, and Marcus helped actually steer my brain here where, if we don't have an aircraft that is going to be able to be certified, maybe there's no need to have an operational Georgia factory at this point. So maybe it's more of a certification that starts to lead into a more mass production of the aircraft. Something that Marcus said that sticks in my head, it's so that you have ship number 10 be the same as ship number 20 coming off the line. But no, as far as my research shows, there's been no final decision made on the Stellantis partnership for the manufacturing. Yeah, but also to be just to be honest, and like I said, it doesn't have me putting anything bad on Joby. I'm liking that they're doing the piloted flight in Dubai. I always felt that Archer is behind Joby, so that argument I don't disagree with at all. I think certification they're behind, the amount of piloted test flights they're behind. Those are just facts. So that's to Joby's credit on that. But also something I was thinking, and Marker, Reece, feel free, and this kind of the rhetorical. So when they did the unpiloted test flight in Abu Dhabi for Archer, there was ADA, so I'm assuming that's Abu Dhabi Aviation, slapped on the side. So is there any egg on the face to Abu Dhabi Aviation? It's like, because that's a choice to put that on the side of the aircraft at that point, as opposed, well, maybe it's a choice. I have to see what, it would be to fly up there. Yeah, go for it, Mark.
It's a marketing strategy. And obviously if ADA is going to be their launch customer, or that's who they'll be selling the aircraft to, they're going to put the stamp on the side of it. you see that all the time in the industry, like
Okay.
when Boeing is going to release a new aircraft and they have a launch customer, you fly to that customer, you put the customer's livery on the side of the aircraft. You're promoting them and because at the end of the day, they're the one that's going to be profiting or trying to profit from the product that Archer is going to be selling to them. So they have their own life cycle of how to get this aircraft into service, and they want to promote it as well. So um, it's no slap in the face at all. And again,
Okay.
that both of them going there at the same time uh, is just they are both in a race. They're both competitors at this point, and since they're both in the U.S., they're the two biggest companies in the U.S. I mean, you also have Beta, but Beta's kind of going a different route of how they want to certify and what their strategy is. So in terms of we want to have an eVTOL aircraft certified and delivered, both of them are kind of going neck and neck. So and I want to say this too, as an industry-wide topic, if you're a long investor, I don't think you're going to lose in either company, simply because there is a rising tide in the eVTOL market. It is, and that is not going to change, and both of them are going to get there. Both of them will get certified and will deliver. But I think the first one to get to the finish line is going to kind of really have a big jump start in the industry. You always, I mean, it's a brand new industry, so whoever can be the first. I mean, honestly,
It comes to face.
I mean, I'm not on the review board for the Collier Trophy, but whoever certifies first, in my opinion, should be the winner of the Collier Trophy that year. And the Collier Trophy is like the Heisman Trophy of the biggest achievement in aviation in the United States. So
Well,
Just oh yeah, carry on, Dylan.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Reece. I was just gonna say, just kind of a last thought on it. A big part of the investment of Archer for me has been sticking to the guidance on the calls. So for me, kind of in these gaps of the 3 months, kind of learning what I can expect to hear on that call and what did they meet from that last call. So
yeah.
just a real quick example, it's like the piloted flight. Adam said we'd expect it in days. It took a few weeks, and there was some shaky stuff during those few weeks, and me as the casual retail investor, I'm like, dude, you said there was going to be a piloted flight in just days, and we're not seeing it. So guidance.
That really worried me in terms of I kind of wish he just hadn't put a time frame on it. And when you do have a time frame like that in the earnings call, I kind of think you just need to be delivering. And then obviously we had the short report that came out as well. So we've had a rough few months now, really, from where we were at the start of the year, where it was just positive news, and because I think we started this year probably swinging maybe a bit more to Joby, and then I'd swung more towards Archer, and now we're back to Joby. So God knows what the next 3 months will bring us. Just one thing, a good point there. I thought Dylan brought up there, and this is probably one for you, Mark. In terms of that propeller design, if that's getting held back now, are they going to be able to manufacture any crafts at the moment, or they just proceed with the 4 at the moment and then figure it out later on? But do you want to produce the 2? Because they were doing 2, didn't they want to do 2 a month for the last 6 months of the year? So would they do 2 this month and then 2 next month, even though the design might just change and it becomes a bit of a wasted venture?
Well, in terms of fortunately, within the design of aircraft, where you have the propulsion system and then you have the airframe, you can plug and play. So I think they can keep moving forward.
And then just change it.
Yeah, and then just change it out. I suspect that if they are going to a 4 rotor system, and it would be a rotor, and this is purely speculation too. For all I know, they're just going to stick with the 4 rotors, and it's going to take the drag penalty, and they're moving forward, and that's what what they're going to certify. But if they were to say, let's make the change now, we and they can go on and get credit for other tests, and so they could go into TIA testing and say, okay, well, we're going to push this aspect of our of our design to the end of TIA testing. So
yeah, go for it, man.
So, but I suspect so you can make changes, and it's happened. It may just delay you a little bit. But
and so if you're doing like the market survey flights, it's going to be kind of a broad painted question, but if you're doing the market survey flights with the aircraft you have now, but like you said, if you know that there's maybe going to be something conforming that needs to change on that tail, I guess my broad question is, you're getting flight data, but then, well, I guess now as I'm asking a question, are you getting accurate flight data?
Well, you're getting flight data, but if you are going to improve your design, that flight data that you're getting from a performance perspective, you can say, all right, well, this is a baseline. When we implement this new, this new rotor, now we go the next step up, and then they just need to revalidate that. So they could, for all intents and purposes, continue on with their test program and maybe even go into TIA testing, and then with a plan to but they do need to then recertify that, and that, so the FAA may say to them, well, okay, just halt until you bring us what you're going to recertify with. So I'm going to be really fascinated, and if I hope someone calls them out on their call and says, hey, what's your plan for your rotors? You're showing 2 and 4 in different videos. So
I think everyone, I'd be absolutely gobsmacked if they don't.
Yeah.
And if they don't, there would be a part of me that thinks they're sort of selected questions rather than just the hard hitting ones, because it's something we've been discussing at long length. So to say that these investors haven't been made aware of it or don't know anything about it, surely that has to be one of the questions. And I hope they have a good answer for it, because internally for their PR, internally their team must be thinking, this is a question that could come up. And I hope they have a good detailed answer for us, and not trying to just wishy-washy answers, or we'll have to come back on that.
I agree with that.
So, and I will say this, in the aerospace industry, and probably among all industries, what happens in the C-suite and the information that comes out of the C-suite and what is happening on the engineering floor, and the headaches that the chief engineer, from the chief engineer all the way down, those headaches are never relayed up into the C-suite and then out into the public. So
so you're saying it's
hide it from the boss. We'll get it fixed by next week.
Well, the boss knows about it. Believe me, the boss knows about it, but he's not going to tell. He's not just going to come straight out and say, well, we have this problem, and there's no pizzas on Fridays anymore because we're not getting things done. So it's
I like that.
It's like again, I can remember on many certification programs that I've worked on, there are always significant challenges that come up, and but those challenges are met, and you have. This is again where I'm fascinated with, okay, who do they have on their engineering teams?
True.
And if they don't have the right people, are they going out and getting the right people? I mean, this is where it talks about, well, they've got plenty of money, so they can offer. I mean, I had a colleague that was offered, that actually I think worked at Archer, and was offered a very, very, very nice compensation package, and this was years ago. So they can. When I say you can throw money at the problem, they can go out and say, get me the best people I need. But this is what's fascinating too about engineering teams, is sometimes you don't, like, you want to have really good people, but you always, like, to develop and build these aircraft, it requires a team. and everybody needs to be working together and understanding, like, when these aircraft are finally delivered and internally, a photograph goes around of the entire engineering team standing around the aircraft and they've delivered it. I mean, it is a huge party when you finally internally meet these milestones. Simply because a lot of engineers are foregoing time with their families. They're working with extremely long hours. That's why, like with SpaceX, you see so many young people working because they're just like, well, I don't have a family yet. I can work 14 hours a day and just eat, pizza and just crank it out because I want to see this thing succeed. It becomes a cultural zeitgeist just to, see your team win. But that is the culture within the company, and cultures can vary drastically between companies. Just like I would be willing to bet that the culture at Joby and the culture at Archer are there. There's a lot of differences, and it could just be one or two, directors or chief engineers that are driving that culture to the benefit or to the degradation of that program. So I'm sorry, I keep going off on these tangents, but there's so many nuances.
No, Mark,
to,
it's such a great point.
design.
You made me feel almost like selfish as the investor because, like, shoot, forget about how happy I'm going to be as the investor. It's like you said, the engineers behind it. Imagine how they're the one that put, like you said, the hours, the sweat, the blood, the tears, all into it. So that's a really cool statement. That's a powerful statement, Mark.
I'll just jump into a few more of these comments. So James Caffrey said Stellantis owns 10% of Archer. Tom Maselli said, fundamentally, this is where vertical integration shines regarding design and weight saving. B-Tech said, Joby did a 900-mile journey powered on the hydrogen with its X-Wing. I thought that was quite an interesting piece of news. And we did discuss this before about the hydrogen model possibly being the most lucrative in terms of distance. And we discussed that it wouldn't actually be a safety risk that I think we had once sort of hypothesized. But I think that's definitely one to keep an eye on in terms of especially for like cargo trips or something like that, or from military use. The 900 miles, I imagine, would be significantly better than electric.
and this is again where, such a fascinating time we live in compared to just where we were 10 years ago in the design cycle. With AI now coming online and how quickly I think designs are going to accelerate. As an engineer, so much of my time is just spent just adding points in space because that's what needs to be done to design this part. And then all of the company requirements for that design, like there's, every company has like your release process for every part. I think they typically say on average it takes about 200 hours of time to design one part if you aggregate it all out. So think 200 hours times what you pay an engineer, kind of you start seeing how quickly the design, just how much it costs to get things designed. And AI is going to take all of that stuff and just compress it so much quicker to where an engineer can just say, design this part, and it'll do it for them immediately. And then design it to my company standards, and it will do it immediately. And nothing will be forgotten of, oh, I forgot to add this. I forgot to add this in the data set or something to that. And then, so engineers are going to be able to become so much more efficient.
That's awesome.
And then you take, again, materials, battery technology, manufacturing processes, all of these things are going to rapidly start increasing. And then who's to say in 2 or 3 years, you're going to have, robots actually designing the parts and putting things together, because that's something you can scale also, to where a humanoid robot can be assisting. They're not going to complain like, us meat sacks are. So, we're a bunch of meat sacks with opinions.
But I think that's a great point you bring up, Mark, too, is like that battery cell, the continued innovations and advancements in that industry as well. So it's very interesting at kind of how many parts and pieces are going to continue to come together to give these aircraft further opportunities of flight, further use cases, further market opportunities. So, sometimes I have to remember that I'm in the early innings of this. And,
Very much so.
if I was only if I was only listening to the quarterly calls or checking in every 6 months, I'd probably be pretty impressed. I mean, I don't know, because I'm doing it every day, so it's just an assumption, but I might be impressed at what they're doing over a year-to-year basis, a quarter-to-quarter basis, or half a year basis. So yeah, it's one, and it's a fun race to watch. It's for me, it's almost Reece is kind of like almost having it talking like a sports match, kind of going back and forth. It's like one person's taking the lead, now somebody else is playing defense. Archer's maybe showing off a little bit too much, shooting some threes, kind of jacking up some shots. But once they catch their swing and their shot, they start going in. So not to get too ahead of myself, and do appreciate the advancements in the industry that have been able to happen over this time, and the fact that we kind of get to be able to come on week to week and either talk about that potential new advancement in the industry, or what, again, the 900 mile flight, something, again, it's always something new and evolving. So I guess my point is, it doesn't seem like an industry right now that's becoming stagnant, and there is continued momentum to push this forward.
Oh, there's definite momentum, more and more. Just in the last, I would say, 2 months, I have seen a significant shift where I'm constantly on, listening to CNBC, and more and more and more, you're hearing Joby, Archer in the news. There are interviews with Jobin. There's interviews with guy for Archer, forgive me, for Adam. Sorry.
Adam.
I was going to say Brandon, but Brandon is
That's okay.
I need a flow chart of all the different owners or CEOs of these companies. But I think the financial markets are starting to look more and more into this space, and they're starting to see this space. And I think, again, I think design tools are going to become far more efficient, and analysis is going to become far more efficient. The one thing that is not going to probably increase at the rate everything else is increasing in efficiency is the FAA's certification process. So when they say it's going to take, when they go into TIA, it's probably going to then be 6 months or 9 months to a year or plus to get type certification. It's just the way it is. Or if I'm wrong, I will come on here and say, hey, I was wrong. Wow, I'm really impressed that the federal government was able to get these aircraft through certification.
I guess touching on that, Tom was mentioning about that the conversation we had earlier about the 4 propellers, and he's got a strong stance of they will not meet their stated performance objectives with their 4-blade design. And I can see that Tom's not a big fan of that 4-blade design. And then BTEC responded with, they could make it possible for 2 blades to retract or be sheared. It's a minor, in his opinion. Or hydraulic controlled blades.
Yes, so you can, if you have mechanism, as you add mechanisms, the more weight you're going to add. So there's nothing that says these things could be, in the same plane and actually fall down into the booms, and the booms could close up with doors, and all of that could be completely closed up like a transformer. And then when it comes time, and then you're in normal flight, and everything's great. And then when you open up, these things come out, and they open up. But that's added weight. That's the trade-off is the weight to it. And even if you were to adjust the pitch on a twin engine airplane, you got the propellers out on the side. Well, if you lose one propeller, they do a thing called they feather the prop, and they basically take the blades to where they are almost like 2 wings, and to where the blades aren't going to be like this, but they'll feather so that you don't have so much drag out on that other wing, because
Hmm.
it'll almost make it to where you can't control the
Sure,
airplane
sure.
if you've got that drag hanging way out around the rotation point of the airplane. So you could feather them. There are certain things you could do. I'm interested in Tom's statement that they can't, that with the 4-blade, what is yeah, I will not meet their stated performance objectives. I'm assuming Tom is saying in their distance, just because of their drag penalty that they would have. And I would agree with him on that too. I think you look at all these other designs that are out there, the blades are turning and going into the wind if they are out in the wind. So.
Doreno, I think this is one we might have covered earlier on. If Archer changes their design, how far does that put them behind certification? I guess that's a bit of an unknown really at this point in terms of where they're going with the 4-blade or if they're going with the 2-blade. We're not really sure.
If I could say something, maybe just you correct me, Mark, because I know you're the pro. But if you've taught me something, you tell me if I'm right or wrong, because you can certify certain pieces of the aircraft, and then if you had to certify the tail differently, that could then be certified as the full aircraft. Or correct me if I'm wrong on that.
You were kind of breaking up. What was that? Can you ask it again real quick?
Just only from what I feel like I've been absorbing from you, if they do go with the tail design that they have right now, and then that is adjusted for the certification, you're able to cert certain areas of the aircraft, and then if the tail needed to be redesigned, that could go back for like a recertification under that new design.
It can be, yes. Yeah, you can change designs during cert and during, I mean, you don't want to be, but you can be. And here's to say this, they may have known this for a while, and they may have been developing a 4-rotor design. Like they might come out in a few weeks with like, oh wow, look, we've solved this problem. And at their earnings call, they announce, yeah, we've solved this problem and we're ready to go into TIA testing and we're right alongside Joby, and this is the new design that we're going with. There's not, because I would expect their aerodynamicists and their propulsion engineers will have known if this would be a problem or not a problem. So they may have just, hey, we want to get an airplane in the air. We want to get. They're very good at sales and PR, or not sales but public relations. So, they may have said, well, let's get an aircraft in the air. Let's keep moving forward, while in the background we're redesigning this and fixing this problem. And the beauty of a rotor is it can bolt on and bolt off, especially when it's on a motor and not an engine. So it's not an impossible task. It's certainly not like a death nail or anything like that. And I wouldn't say it may not put them that far back in certification, unless there's something very fundamentally wrong.
I'm just going to run through a few of these comments here because they've actually mounted up quite a bit since since we
great questions today, everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Timmy said Joby made their own flying craft from the start. They didn't contract anything out like the others. The hydrogen craft too. Tom Maselli said beyond drag, there'll likely be stability concerns. Keep in mind that these blades are essentially wings in different positions. BTEC said the engines are Toyota engines though. Plus, with the QS and solid-state batteries, that's a big thing for Joby coming, a lighter battery. I think that's just touching on what we had before. Chris has joined the stream, guys. He says, guys, great stream. BTEC says, yes, Tom, but you have rear wings on the plane, and if you keep the blades flat, that shouldn't create instability. Is that true there, Mark? Just as a...
Yeah, as long as they're not, I mean, these things are really solidly mounted into a hub. So, and they're not very large. It's not like a helicopter rotor where it's the thing could be out flapping in the wind.
Yeah.
So they don't have a very big disc. They got a fairly large size disc area, probably 30. Well, I won't guess. Probably like 80 inches or something.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is in centimeters, call it like, or meters.
Sure.
But these things are really solidly mounted, so they're stiff. They're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
If anything, I don't know if it would cause a stability issue as much as it would just cause a drag issue.
Chris has said, Reece, Dylan, you're both way overdue for joining your boy on a live. So that's an invitation there, Dylan. I think we'll have to take him.
We love you. Yeah, we love you, Chris. We're always ready.
You shout out to Chris.
Yeah.
Timmy says Joby Aero Motors before Toyota, I think.
Yeah, I don't know what he means there.
If you could let us know, Tim, what that means.
Yeah, is Toyota actually providing the motors? I wonder if he's
possibly that might be
interesting. Sure.
Tom Misselli says, regarding your shearing blade comment, it is possible. However, it would add complexity, additional failure maintenance points, and rotational mass.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Yeah. That's why I'm a big fan. That's why I'm a big fan of hiding everything when you can.
We've got a comment here from Liam. Who loves Mark and Dylan as the new additions to our team. I think everyone here is loving it at the moment, and the time's just flying by. So
it is.
It's not ideal, but not a big engineering deal to add 4 blades to the rear, in my opinion, and make sure they retract or flatten to not add drag or up force or down force.
That's right.
And then who would buy a helicopter? In Dubai, will they fly around the city or straight over it, as it's only desert around it? And then Tomaselli says Joby use AFP on their airframe. Definitely watch that Monroe video in reference to what we were discussing earlier.
I'll watch that, Tom.
BTEC says Dubai Marina to Dubai Airport. They will mostly be flying over the desert. Just over desert, which helps certification. And I think that's something that Archer were doing. They were doing their high humidity, extreme temperatures, basically testing.
Absolutely.
Good call, Reece. Tom Maselli was saying you should check out that video. Some of Joby's components are truly beautiful. They are also using additive manufacturing on some metal components. So I think we know who what side of the fence Tom sits on. I'm going to say it's Joby.
And to agree with Tom really quick, because again, the reason I liked watching the Hustle Brothers was because there was no content in the eVTOL space. So as I'm searching for the any and everythings on these companies, because I've been shareholders of both. So I definitely prefer Archer more, but shareholders of both in the industry. But yeah, Sandy was a gentleman who I was Googling earlier how he gets his interviews. Actually, was basically the search question I put in. Didn't give me the best answer, but yeah, it seems like somebody who has been able to get into actually both Joby and Archer's facilities. So there's probably about a 30 to 45-minute video on both. Now, the Archer one would not be on the Georgia factory. It would be on the other location, California. So but yeah,
I'm gonna hop in the plane here pretty quick and fly to Covington and just take a look at this factory.
I'm telling you, Mark, hey, you got me itching to do it with you. Yeah, absolutely.
We've got a celebrity. He's been around since the start. His bag of holding, and as always, he's saying Ocean Gate can sell them their AFP. BTEC says, or above the sea, avoiding flying over cities. BTEC said, I think it helps compared to flying right over LA, for example. Tom appreciates that from Bag. Ironman says, my guess is that Joby will start commercial flights in UAE first, then Archer will get a nice fat Department of Defense contract, and then they will have to get ready for the LA 2028. I think that's what all of us Archer investors are hoping for at the moment. In the actual time in our, I'd say.
Oh, go for it. I'm so sorry. Please go.
No, that's that. In terms of the plan that I have in my mind, there is something along those lines. That Andrew contract, and then LA, they just have to be ready for it. Like, I don't care what they have to do. If they have to move heaven and earth, LA 2028 would be a disaster if they don't hit that.
And I wouldn't be surprised. This is, hypothetical. But the Sunday shows, I feel like maybe we can reach out there a little bit. But you had the announcement on NBC, who's also hosting the viewing for the Olympics. So my thinking is, if this is something, because I actually do want to read through the exclusive deal. I would imagine they could pull that if things were not up to standard, because you can't have obviously something not certed. I would assume flying athletes or
Yeah.
civilians around. So I think it'll be interesting to see as well. Just it's kind of NBC and the marketings that they do. After that announcement, and maybe one time this football season, we see Adam on a Sunday night football broadcast, and then it's like 2027 comes, and is Adam on 2 or is he on 0? Yeah, and so I don't know. Those are just kind of the little seeds in my head, and some of the alleys that I try to navigate down to figure out what's coming to fruition with those announcements. And I'm sure NBC will get the egg off their face very quickly if they don't think Archer's a viable contender to be able to do that.
Well, again, that's a good point. These aircraft they're certified experimental, so they can fly within the United States, and they could start flying to cities all over the place and landing them and doing PR campaigns. So you're right, like say the Super Bowl or just an NFL game, some large event where the thing actually flies over or flies around the periphery of the stadium where everyone can see it, and it goes and lands, and afterwards when everyone's leaving the game, the thing is sitting there.
Sure.
You can do all those promotional videos right now and really generate a lot of excitement, and I think it's wise that they do that. I want the public to be as excited as possible about it, because you listen to what some of the public is saying, and it's just they just don't understand how much more safe these aircraft will be over helicopters or just a standard airplane that's flying today. There's going to be so many more safety features, to where I don't want to say they will be fail safe, because nothing is fail safe, but there are going to be a lot of added safety features. So,
and to Reece, Liam, Lisa, good Lord,
Liam.
I can't talk. Liam and Reece, how they spoke, excuse me, about like the grandma getting on the eVTOL and going. I'll peel back my age and kind of where my energy level is. So I'm 39, turning 40 this year, and I just came back from South Carolina, so that was about on the map, no traffic, 6.5 hours drive. My wife actually did probably the brunt, about 3.5 hours. We got in at midnight last night. I drove the last probably little over 3 hours leg of the trip, and I was gassed, man. And it just kind of happened to click to me today. I was just like, man, if there was an eVTOL that I could have just put my family on, like, one, we could have got out of there whenever we want. And then the ride home would have been relaxing, 45 minutes or an hour, whatever it is. And so it was just kind of one of those use cases where I'm like, and then to your point, Mark, of the 10 to 15 years, well, I'll be 55 by then. And, as that continues to go, maybe me as somebody that's excited, and then not wanting to take those 7-hour drives would be more up to take that eVTOL for that ride.
I will say this, and I don't want to sound arrogant at all.
Oh, no.
But as a pilot, there is nothing better than looking down at people.
I'm glad you said it, Mark. I was like,
especially when those people are sitting in traffic and it's just nothing but lights, and it's like, they're going to be there for hours, and I'm going to be at my destination in a fraction of the time. And you're right. That is what
I love that.
That is the change of I say that sarcastically, but that is the change that is coming.
Say with that. Sure.
That's the change that's coming. And Dylan, in 5 years, there's a very good chance you could get an Uber Elevate, or not an Uber Elevate, but an Uber or the equivalent of, and it can pick you up and it can take you where there isn't traffic anymore, and you're going to fly over all the congestion and stuff. But we're about to become a 3D species.
And there's one thing that I cannot remember what they're calling it, but it's and I'm sorry to be this vague and not know what I'm going to say, but it's like this air taxi network, but there's a name. It's a 3-word name, and it's elevated like a mile over land. And so I'll get back to you guys on that. But it's been for the last 2 streams. It's been on the tip of my tongue, and I just can't remember it. But I know they've been speaking about it kind of in this development on both sides. So not really like an archer speaking, but just kind of when you're reading general reports. But I'm sorry to be so vague, but there's that I need to get back to you guys on what they've been calling kind of the mile to 2 above traffic.
In terms of just altitude, the airspace.
It was exactly, Mark. It was something, and I'm gonna stumble before I pull it, but yeah, it was almost like, as we call something a highway. It was like this, and I'm even making it more simple than it is, but it was kind of this air, like basically whatever this altitude that you would be able to fly an eVTOL in is now going to have like its own.
It'll have its own block altitude. Yeah, it'll be
okay.
Yeah, you have that now in the airspace. There's different classes of airspace, and so in big metropolitan areas, it's a class Charlie or a class Bravo airspace, and it actually looks like a big upside down cake. And if you go into that Bravo, you have to be in ATC control. Out where I live out in the country, I can pretty much just go get my airplane, take off, and I don't have to talk to anybody. But I think what's going to start happening is the FAA is going to start stratifying the airspace to start allowing these eVTOLs to fly through airways in the sky. And that's what you'll have. It'll be like an interstate in the sky. And the great thing is,
the sky was a much more elegant way to put what I mumbled. So good job, Mark.
The thing is like when you're up there flying around, it's a big sky. Like there's so much space. Like it is an ocean up there that nobody is in. So we're about as soon as we start getting these craft, we're going to start being able to really take advantage of that, and it's going to be fascinating.
100%. I actually think I'm gonna have to wrap it there.
Get going.
I've got work in the morning, so I want to apologize to all the comments that we didn't get to. And if we haven't got to your comment, we'll be back this week, maybe possibly Tuesday, guys, if you're available, with eVTOL Weekly. I think this has been a great stream, and time has just flown by.
Tell your friends. Let's start getting friends on here. We want more and more people involved in like
100%. I think everyone that was in comments today, there's been real insightful questions, and this is what the eVTOL fan club is about. We want to be bringing people on. We want to hear people's opinions, and we want to discuss the big topics or the big stumbling blocks that we might be coming across, or just generic questions or specific questions that people have had on their mind for a while that we can just iron out once we have Dylan and Mark here.
And I could be wrong, Reece, you may know better, but once this stream ends, it will take away these comments, but I believe the video stays. So if there was maybe any questions or comments that we didn't get to, if you want to drop those in once we end the video, or again, if that's an opportunity, if anybody wants to put something in for me to get the research done, feel free to drop that comment in. I'll reply and get to work on that too for you guys.
100%. So yeah, thanks very much, guys. It's been a great stream, and see you Tuesday.
Yep. Keep the blue side up, everyone.
See you Tuesday. Have a great week, everyone.
See ya.